Evan tapped his butter knife against his champagne glass while his mother was still cutting the anniversary cake. "One quick family thing," he said. Lorraine stopped with the knife buried in silver frosting. Ryan leaned back in his chair and smiled before anything had been said, which was the first sign that I was the only person at the table who hadn't rehearsed this. "Ryan made an error on the company taxes," Evan said. "Nothing criminal, it's a classification issue." Then he looked at me. "Since you enter the expenses, we need you to say you misunderstood what he sent you." The dining room went still except for the soft hiss of Lorraine's gas fireplace. She set down the cake knife and placed her hand over mine. "Mara, sometimes being a wife means protecting the family when you're the one who can." Across the table, Ryan laughed. "She wants to interview witnesses now." "I'll agree to hear Dana first," I said. Evan's smile tightened. "Dana? Your accountant." I took out my phone, found Dana Cho's number, and called her on speaker. The ringing filled Lorraine's carefully decorated dining room. In front of the anniversary couple sat the crystal house Evan and I had given them 5 years earlier, its tiny windows catching the chandelier light. Dana's voicemail answered. Ryan raised his glass to me. Compelling testimony. No one else laughed. I ended the call but kept my phone in my hand. "Why do you need my statement before she can speak?" Lorraine pulled her hand away. Evan glanced at his brother, and that tiny movement answered more than any of them did. The cake began to sag where Lorraine had left the knife in it. She removed the blade, wiped it with a napkin, and said, "We are not ruining a lovely evening over paperwork." "It's not just paperwork," I said. "It is exactly paperwork," Ryan said. "That's why you're perfect for it." He had always spoken to me as though I were the human form of a labeled drawer, useful, organized, and a little embarrassing to discuss in public. I turned to Evan. "What would the statement say?" "We don't have to do this at the table." "You started it at the table." His jaw shifted. He hated being corrected in front of Lorraine. His mother could tell him his shirt looked cheap, his haircut made his face wide, and his bid numbers were sloppy, and he would grin as though she had offered professional coaching. If I told him he had forgotten trash day, he heard a challenge to his authority. Ryan reached for the wine bottle. "It says she thought the Northline payments were legitimate subcontractor expenses. She accepts responsibility for entering them under the wrong code. We amend. Pay the difference. Move on." "The Northline invoices you gave me." "They weren't invoices," Ryan said. "They were payment authorizations." "They said consulting?" "Which is a kind of subcontracting. Not when there's no contract, no scope of work, and no W-9. Lorraine sighed. "Mara, it was the same tone she used when I put serving spoons on the wrong side of a buffet dish." Evan lowered his voice. "The bank reviews the credit line next month. If the accountant reports a management decision, it can trigger a deeper review. If it's a bookkeeping mistake, we correct it." "And what happens to me?" "Nothing." Ryan poured himself more wine. "The IRS sends you a mean birthday card." Evan shot him a look. "Could you not?" "What?" "She thinks federal agents are about to swing through the windows." I had never seen Ryan carry a box that wasn't labeled lunch, but he had inherited 51% of Mercer Restoration because he was older by 14 months. Evan ran the crews, priced jobs, calmed angry homeowners, and woke at 4 in the morning to fix Ryan's schedules. Ryan wore loafers to job sites and introduced himself as Chief Operating Officer. "What's the amount?" I asked. Evan rubbed his thumb along the stem of his glass. "How much, Evan?" $186. Lorraine cut 4 pieces of cake with brutal precision. I stared at him. $186,000? "It's spread over 2 tax years," he said quickly. "The actual tax adjustment is nowhere near that. And you want me to sign something saying I classified all of it by mistake. We want you to explain what happened." "No, you've already explained what you want me to say." Lorraine placed a plate in front of me. The slice had a sugar rose on it. She always gave me the decorative piece, then reminded everyone how little she liked sweets. "Eat your cake," she said. "Your blood sugar is making you combative." I almost smiled. There was something impressive about the reach of her certainty. It could cross a table, diagnose your body, revise your intentions, and return home before you had lifted your fork. Evan touched my knee under the table. It might have looked affectionate to anyone else. His fingers pressed hard enough to warn me. "We'll talk at home," he said. I moved my leg away. Lorraine began asking Ryan about the stonework at a lake house the company was renovating. He answered with his mouth full of cake. The conversation rolled around me, determinedly normal. Supplier delays. A client who changed her mind about limestone. The anniversary trip Lorraine and Walter were taking to Charleston in October. Walter ate his cake without looking up. He had spent most of the evening making small jokes about marriage being a long, hostage situation. Now he scraped frosting from the tines of his fork and said nothing while his sons asked his daughter-in-law to confess to a six-figure mistake. My phone vibrated. Every face lifted. It was a pharmacy notification. Ryan barked out a laugh, and even Walter smiled into his plate. I put my napkin on the table. "Happy anniversary. Thank you for dinner." Lorraine's eyes moved to the untouched sugar rose. "You're leaving before coffee?" "I think I've had enough." Evan followed me into the foyer. Behind us, Ryan said something about decaf, and Lorraine shushed him too late. My purse hung from a brass hook beside Lorraine's front door. When I lifted it, my key ring snagged the lining. The ring held our house key, the Mercer office key, and the little dented key to the green filing cabinet that Ryan lost so often Teresa had made me a copy. Lorraine's emergency key to our house hung on the hook beside mine, tied to a red wooden heart that said, "Family opens every door." I looked at it for a second. Evan reached around me and opened the door. "Mara, please don't make the exit a whole production." Cold air caught the front of my dress. "You announced it over champagne." My mother wanted everyone to understand the stakes. Everyone except me already did. "That's not fair." "Did you know before tonight?" He checked over his shoulder. The dining room doorway was empty, but he still pulled the front door nearly closed behind us. "Ryan told me yesterday. Did you and Lorraine decide how to ask me?" We talked about the best approach. The porch light showed every detail of his face, the small shaving cut under his chin, the pale line where he had removed his sunglasses after work, the tiredness at the corners of his eyes that I usually wanted to smooth away with my thumb. "What was the best approach?" I asked. "Cake first, felony second?" "It isn't a felony." "Then Ryan can sign his own name. The statement isn't final. Nobody is asking you to lie." "You told me what to say before I'd seen it." "Because I know what happened." "So do I." I asked him for support on those payments 3 times, and he told me to enter the authorizations and stop slowing everything down. Evan looked toward the street. "Keep your voice down." There were no neighbors outside. Lorraine's porch had become another room whose peace I was responsible for maintaining. "You knew he sent them to me without documents?" "I knew there were issues. And you let me sit down in there without warning me. I knew if I warned you, you wouldn't come." The honesty of it made me quiet. He mistook that for progress. "Mom wanted one nice night. She didn't want you walking in already upset. So she wanted me surprised, not absent. She wanted the family together. Together for what? To make it harder for me to say no?" The front door opened behind him. Lorraine stood there holding my coat. "You'll catch pneumonia proving a point." She draped the coat over my shoulders and smoothed the collar, her fingers cool against my neck. Then she looked at Evan, not me. "Take her home. She's tired." I stepped away before she could button me into it. The drive took 19 minutes. Evan spent the first 6 in silence and the next 13 telling me why the statement was less serious than I believed. The company's insurance renewal was coming up. Ryan's contractor classification could be questioned. The bank might lower the line. 23 people depended on Mercer Restoration for paychecks. Suppliers could tighten terms. Projects would stall. Ordinary families would sit in half-finished kitchens because I refused to describe a bookkeeping mistake as a bookkeeping mistake. At a red light, I said, "You left out the part where it wasn't my mistake." He gripped the steering wheel. "You entered the transactions after Ryan approved them. You're the bookkeeper. I'm not the bookkeeper. I'm your wife who does bookkeeping for free at the kitchen table after her paid job. You know what I mean." "I don't think I do anymore." The light changed. A horn sounded behind us, and Evan accelerated hard enough to push me against the seat. At home, a clean stack of Northline payment authorizations sat beside my laptop on the kitchen table. I stopped in the doorway. That morning, the table had held a bowl of oranges, 2 unopened supplier statements, and the grocery list. Now the oranges had been moved to the counter. A yellow tab marked every place on the authorizations where I had entered an account code. Evan set his keys in the ceramic dish by the door. I printed those so we could look at them. "When?" "This afternoon. You came home and prepared exhibits before taking me to dinner." "Don't call them exhibits." "What would you call them?" "Documents." "Great. Who gave you the statement?" He loosened his tie. "Ryan had the attorney draft something. The company has an attorney now?" "We have always had an attorney." "You have a man who charged us $900 to copy boilerplate into a subcontractor agreement. That is an attorney." Despite myself, I laughed once. Evan almost did too. For half a second, we were us again, standing in our kitchen after a difficult dinner, finding the same absurd thing absurd. Then he said, "See, we can talk about this without turning it into a betrayal." The laugh left me. He walked to the table and opened the top authorization. "Your initials are here." "Because I entered it." "That's all the statement says." "No, it says I misunderstood it." "You did misunderstand it." "What did I misunderstand?" "That the consulting classification wasn't appropriate." "I knew it wasn't appropriate. Ryan ordered me to use it anyway." "And do you have that in writing?" There it was. Not a careless question, not curiosity. He knew exactly where the weak floorboard was because he had watched them lay it under my feet. Most of Ryan's instructions came through calls from his truck or messages that disappeared in the company chat after 90 days. I had complained about the Northline paperwork, but I didn't know whether I had written the complaint in an email, left a note in the accounting system, or set it into Ryan's voicemail while carrying laundry upstairs. Evan saw me searching my memory. He closed the folder softly. "Dana has complete records. If she says you warned us in writing, we'll deal with that. I'm not asking you to sign tonight." "Why did she need to speak to me before the return was amended?" "She didn't." "Why didn't she answer?" "It's Saturday night, Mara." "Did she know about the dinner?" His pause was brief. It was enough. I went upstairs, changed out of my dress, and hung it in the back of the closet. When I returned, Evan had put the oranges back in their bowl. The table looked almost normal except for the yellow tabs lined up like small flags. He was opening the dishwasher. "Lorraine loaded that yesterday," I said. "So?" "She was here yesterday." "She dropped off the flowers for tonight." "She has her own refrigerator. Why was she loading our dishwasher?" He stared down at a dinner plate as though it might offer neutral testimony. My phone rang on the counter. Dana Cho's name lit the screen. Evan reached it first. He didn't pick it up, but his hand settled beside the phone. For one strange second, we stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island while it rang between us. Then the sound stopped. A voicemail notification appeared. Evan looked at me. "We should listen together." I picked up the phone before he could. Dana's message was 11 seconds long. "Mara, it's Dana. Do not sign anything. Please call me when you're alone." I played it twice. On the second playback, Evan closed the dishwasher and said very quietly, "She shouldn't have called you." "She's our accountant," I said. "She's the company's accountant. And I do the company's books. You process entries. Dana shouldn't be discussing tax strategy with you separately." "She didn't discuss strategy. She told me not to sign something you said was harmless." Evan picked up the folder and squared its edges against the table. I said we should hear what she has to say. You said she shouldn't have called me. Because this is exactly how people turn a fixable problem into factions. He tucked the folder under his arm and started for the hall. Where are you taking that? To my office. You don't have an office here. He stopped. For 7 years, the second bedroom had been where I worked remotely 3 days a week, ran Mercer payroll on Thursdays, and stored extra towels because Lorraine said a linen closet should never look hungry. Evan occasionally closed the door and took a call there. The room had become his office now because he needed somewhere to carry the evidence away from me. You know what I mean, he said again. It was becoming the official phrase of our marriage. I followed him upstairs. Leave the Northline authorizations on the table. They belong to the company. They were put in front of me to justify a statement about my work. And you said no. Conversation over. Then why are you hiding them? He turned in the doorway. I am trying very hard not to say something cruel. That makes one of us. His face changed. It wasn't anger at first. It was hurt, clean and almost boyish, and it worked on me because it always had. Then he remembered he was supposed to be offended. You think I enjoyed tonight? He asked. You think I like cleaning up Ryan's messes? Yeah, I think you decided I was easier to clean with. He went into the room and locked the door. The lock was a little brass privacy button, the kind you could open with a coin. We both knew that. Still, I stood in the hallway staring at it until my phone felt warm in my hand. I took Dana's call from my car. The inside of the garage smelled like concrete and Evan's pine air freshener. I didn't start the engine. I sat in the driver's seat with the overhead light off and watched the kitchen window through the windshield. Dana answered on the first ring. Are you alone? Yes. Is Evan there? In the house. She breathed out. Papers shifted on her end. Dana always sounded as if she were standing beside a printer, even when I'd once run into her buying tomatoes. I need to be careful, she said. Mercer Restoration is my client. You're not an owner or officer. I know. I can't provide you the company's tax records without authorization. I know. But if anyone gives you a statement concerning the preparation of those returns, do not sign it until you've had independent advice. What happened with Northline? I can't discuss the return. Dana, I can tell you that I raised questions, in writing, more than once. With Ryan? A longer pause. With the appropriate people. Was I one of them? You raised your own questions. My grip tightened around the phone. You have those? Mara, do you still have access to the tax mailbox? The shared mailbox was tax@mercerrestoration.com. Dana sent filing requests there. I pulled invoices, uploaded documents, and chased whichever brother had ignored her. I should. Check it before Monday. Preserve your own communications. Only your own. Do you understand? I opened my mouth, but the kitchen light went dark. Evan's shadow crossed the window. I have to go. Mara, I ended the call as the door from the kitchen opened. Evan stood at the top of the garage steps in his shirt sleeves. Who were you talking to? Dana. His hand rested on the doorknob. You said we would listen together. No. You said we should. That's a distinction you'd be furious with me for making. He was right, which irritated me more than if he'd been wrong. Did you know she warned Ryan? I asked. I knew she had questions. Did you know I did too? You have questions about every receipt Ryan hands you. Because he once submitted a car wash as masonry. That was obviously a mistake. It was a very clean wall. Evan looked down, and the corner of his mouth moved. He fought it this time. I hated that there was still humor between us. I wanted him simple enough to leave cleanly, and he insisted on remaining the man who warmed my side of the bed with a heating pad when my back hurt. Come inside, he said. It's freezing out here. I followed him because it was freezing, not because he had asked. At my desk, the password to the tax mailbox didn't work. I typed it again, watching each dot appear. Then I tried the old password, the one based on Walter and Lorraine's anniversary. The account told me to contact my administrator. My company chat had signed itself out too. Evan. He came to the doorway carrying 2 mugs. I made tea. You changed my password. I didn't. Who did? Ryan may have updated permissions. The insurer told us to tighten access. At 10 o'clock on a Saturday? He handed me a mug. The tea bag string had fallen inside, and the little paper tag floated on top like a surrender flag. I'll ask him in the morning, he said. Call him now. I am not calling my brother after he's been drinking. He was sober enough to ask me to lie. Keep saying lie, and eventually there won't be a conversation to save. I set the mug on the desk. You changed the locks while telling me no one was shutting me out. It's an email password. Then give it to me. I don't have it. He took his tea and left. I waited until his footsteps reached the bedroom, then opened my personal bank account. The balance from before my marriage was still there, though smaller than it should have been. Over the years, I had moved money into our joint savings for a new furnace, a company payroll shortage, and a deposit on the kitchen that Ryan's crew was supposed to remodel at cost. The cabinets had arrived 9 months late. We had paid full price. I transferred the remainder back to the account in my name. The bank required a code, then asked whether I was sure. I watched the small wheel turn until a green check appeared. It did not feel triumphant. It felt like hearing a dead bolt slide in a dark room. On Sunday morning, Evan made pancakes. He made them whenever he wanted peace without apology. He used too much butter and left flour on the cabinet handles, but the pancakes came out perfectly round. He put blueberries in mine and set the plate at my usual spot. I talked to Ryan, he said. I poured coffee. Did he restore my access? He thinks it's best if you step away from company records until Dana completes the amendment. So no. He also thinks you shouldn't do Thursday payroll. I looked at him. You said you're not the bookkeeper, he added. I'm not an unpaid bookkeeper. There's a difference. Then invoice us. He said it with the confidence of someone offering a solution I would be unreasonable not to accept. All right. He blinked. All right? I'll invoice Mercer for my work from now on. I'll send my rate and terms to Teresa. You don't need terms, you're helping us. I'm either helping, which I can stop doing, or working, which you can pay for. His spatula scraped the pan. You're making every part of our life transactional. Ryan gave me a tax confession with dessert. The next pancake folded when he tried to flip it. We ate without speaking. At 10, Lorraine called to ask if I had taken her silver cake knife by accident. At 10:15, she texted a photograph of the knife in her own dishwasher and wrote, "Found it. My head is still spinning from last night." I did not answer. At 11, she let herself into our house. I heard the key in the front door while I was in the laundry room. Lorraine came through carrying a glass casserole dish covered in foil and a grocery bag looped over one wrist. "Oh," she said when she saw me, "you're home." "I live here." "I thought you two might go to brunch and talk like reasonable adults." She carried the casserole into the kitchen. Evan had gone to the office to meet Ryan. Lorraine knew that. She set the dish in our refrigerator, moving my containers to make room. "What is it?" "Chicken divan." I meant, "What are you doing here?" "Feeding my son. He knows how to feed himself. He knows how to order pizza." She folded the grocery bag and tucked it into the drawer where I kept dish towels, another small colonization. "I want your key," I said. She closed the drawer. "Excuse me?" "The emergency key. I want it back." "Mara, I've had that key since you bought the house." "Evan and I bought the house." "That's what I said. It's no longer convenient for you to come in when we aren't expecting you." Her eyes narrowed, not with outrage, but evaluation. Lorraine noticed risk early. It was one of the reasons Mercer Restoration had survived Ryan. "You're punishing me because your husband asked for help. I'm asking for my house key because you entered my house without knocking. You gave me permission. I'm withdrawing it." She leaned against the counter. "Do you hear yourself? Withdrawing permission, invoicing family. Where did you learn to speak like a human resources seminar? Probably while doing human resources for your company." "I told Evan not to ask you at dinner." That surprised me enough to show. He thought you would understand if you saw how the whole family was affected. She continued, I said you would feel cornered. But you called it my duty. After you made that dreadful call and put Dana on speaker, I was trying to keep things from becoming ugly. You were trying to keep me in my chair. She looked toward the hall as though the house might be listening. Ryan can be careless. Evan has spent his entire life compensating for that. If the company gets hurt, Evan gets hurt more. You know this. So Ryan should be accountable. Accountability is a luxury when 23 people need paychecks, the same number Evan had used in the car. Did you all get a script? I'm not your enemy, Mara. No, you're standing in my kitchen explaining why I should become one for you. She lifted her purse from the counter, opened an inside pocket, and placed the key beside the fruit bowl. The red wooden heart looked brighter in our kitchen than it had in her foyer. Then she picked it up again. I'll give this to Evan, she said. It's his house, too. She left with the key. The casserole stayed. I carried it to the refrigerator in the garage, where we kept drinks and paintbrushes Evan swore he would clean. Then I sat at the kitchen table and created an invoice. 4 hours of payroll, 6 hours reconciling supplier statements, 3 hours preparing quarterly reports. I did not try to recreate 7 years. I billed only for the current month and attached payment terms. When I sent it to Teresa, she replied in less than a minute. Is this real? Yes. A typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then returned. Good for you. 3 minutes later, another message came. Ryan told me you resigned last night. I called her. What exactly did he say? Teresa lowered her voice. I could hear office phones behind her. Evan and Ryan must have pulled her into work on a Sunday. He said you admitted you made errors and decided to step back for personal reasons. He wants me to tell vendors all bookkeeping questions go through him. I didn't resign. I figured. You don't even leave a restaurant without stacking the plates. Please don't tell anyone that like it's a character reference. She gave a short laugh, then stopped. Mara, your name is gone from the accounting system. I know. No, I mean the user history. The entries say administrator now. They don't say who entered them. My stomach dropped. Can he do that? He just did. A door closed on her end. I have to go, she whispered. He's coming. The call ended. I stared at my invoice on the screen, my neat list of hours already made irrelevant by a story moving faster than I was. The front lock turned. Evan walked in carrying Lorraine's casserole in one hand. In the other, he held the red heart key ring. My mother called me crying, he said. I looked at the key. Did you give it back to her? He set the casserole on the counter. She's had access for 7 years. That wasn't my question. He put his keys in the ceramic dish. The red heart landed among them. She's family, he said. Upstairs, I took the brass ring from my purse and removed the Mercer office key. I turned it over in my palm, thinking about the tax mailbox, the erased user history, and the green filing cabinet in the corner beside Teresa's desk. The cabinet did not belong to a cloud administrator. It opened with a dented piece of brass I still possessed. I slid the key back onto the ring. I left before sunrise with the keys in my coat pocket. Evan's side of the bed was empty. He had slept in the second bedroom with the door locked, a decision he would later describe as giving me space. Downstairs, Lorraine's casserole occupied the center shelf of the refrigerator again. He had put it back where she wanted it. The Mercer office sat behind a tile showroom in a strip of low brick buildings. A floodlight washed the parking lot in blue-white glare. My office key caught halfway, as it always did in cold weather, then turned when I lifted the handle. Inside, the place smelled of coffee grounds, drywall dust, and the lemon spray Teresa used on Friday afternoons. Ryan's framed contractor's license hung in the reception area beside photographs of kitchens Evan had actually built. I switched on Teresa's desk lamp instead of the overhead lights. The green filing cabinet stood in the corner, dented along one side from the time a delivery driver backed into it. Ryan had wanted to throw it away. Teresa kept contracts in the top drawer, old tax files in the middle, and whatever Ryan handed her when he said, "Put this somewhere safe," in the bottom. The small brass key opened all three. The Northline folder was in the bottom drawer between a stack of fuel receipts and a binder labeled Holiday Party. It held 3 invoices on thick cream paper, each listed Project Development Consultation, a date and a round amount. $48,000, $62,000, $76,000. No job address, no labor detail, no materials. Stapled to the first invoice was a payment authorization with Ryan's initials. The second had Evan's. I sat back on my heels. Evan's initials were unmistakable. An E drawn like a backward 3, then an M cut through it. I had seen it on thousands of change orders. The third authorization had no initials, only a yellow sticky note in Ryan's handwriting. M, code same as first 2, need out by Friday. That was what I had done. Coded it the same as the first 2, the first of which Ryan approved, and the second Evan approved. I photographed every page, including the folder tabs and the drawer where I found them. Then I emailed the images from my personal account to myself and put everything back in the same order. You know, burglars usually turn off the lamp. I hit my head on the open drawer. Teresa stood near reception holding 2 coffees and looking more tired than anyone should at 6:30. "You scared me. You broke into my desk area. I used a key, so do most disappointing burglars." She handed me a coffee and nodded toward the cabinet. "Find anything?" 3 invoices. Ryan approved 1. Evan approved another. I remember those. You do? I remember Northline because I asked whether we were restoring a compass. I stared at her. North line. She lifted one shoulder. It was a slow day. Do you remember who delivered them? Ryan brought the first. Evan left the second in my tray. The third came by mail. Did Dana ever ask you about them? Teresa's expression changed. Last spring. She asked for contracts and work product. I told her I didn't have any. What did Ryan say? He said Dana billed by the question and I should stop helping her. I showed Teresa the photograph of the sticky note. That's his writing, she said. It doesn't prove what he knew. It proves he knew you didn't invent the payment. A truck pulled into the lot. We both turned toward the window. It was one of the company pickups, but Luis from the field crew got out, not Ryan. Teresa relaxed. You need to go, she said. Ryan told me to collect your keys if you came in. Did he say why my user history was removed? He said the software consolidated inactive accounts. Within hours? He also said vendors prefer 1 point of contact. Vendors prefer getting paid. I shut the cabinet and locked it. My invoice is due in 14 days. Frame the first dollar, it may be lonely. At the door, she caught my sleeve. Mari, Ryan called Falcon Millwork yesterday. He told them you miscoded their deposits and the tax return. Why Falcon? Because they asked why you weren't answering. Falcon supplied cabinets to 3 Mercer projects and occasionally referred bookkeeping work to the firm where I worked. Ryan wasn't just building a defense inside his company. He was putting my name in front of anyone who might repeat it. Did Evan hear him? He was in the room. The office key felt heavy when I locked the front door behind me. By 9, I was at my real job, staring at a spreadsheet without understanding any of the numbers. I worked for Hartwell Supply, a regional plumbing distributor with fluorescent offices and a president who believed every meeting needed muffins. My supervisor, Nisha, had been asking me for months to take over vendor compliance. I had kept refusing because the position required 2 evenings a month, and Thursday nights belonged to Mercer payroll. At 10, she leaned into my cubicle. You look like you've been auditing ghosts. Can we talk about the compliance position? She came all the way in. You said your family obligations made it impossible. They changed. Is that good? No. Does it make you available? Yes. Nisha sat in the spare chair. Then we can discuss it after you sleep. You look like you're trying to win a duel with Excel. I accepted the position that afternoon. It came with a raise, 2 later evenings, and a company policy forbidding outside accounting work without written approval. I signed that page more carefully than any other. Ryan called while I was driving home. "Where are my keys?" "On my key ring." "You entered company property before business hours." "The property I've entered before business hours for 7 years. You're no longer authorized." "When was I notified?" "You're being notified now." "Then send it in writing." He laughed, but there was strain in it. "You think you're building a case because you found a few invoices?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I had told only Teresa. "You went through the cabinet after I left," I said. "It's my cabinet." "You knew which folder," Teresa told me. I didn't believe him, but I didn't defend her. "Did Evan tell you I moved my savings?" Silence. That answer was almost satisfying. "You moved what?" "Send the access change in writing, Ryan. You don't get to walk away after making this mess." "You told everyone I resigned." "You know what I meant." I ended the call. At home, a locksmith's van blocked the driveway. I had called during lunch and paid from my personal account. The locksmith was a cheerful man named Greg who explained every movement of the dead bolt, while Evan stood in the foyer with his arms crossed. "You could have told me," Evan said after Greg left. "I did. I asked for Lorraine's key." "She gave it back." "She gave it to you." "It's in the dish." The red heart key ring was there, but that only proved one copy was in the dish. "I want us to agree that no one gets a new key without both of us agreeing. It's my house, too. Then agree." He looked at the new silver key in his palm. "You changed the lock before asking me." "I asked you to keep someone out. You told me her history of entering mattered more than my request." My mother brought us dinner. She also moved my bank statements last month and knew we refinanced before I told her. She saw the envelope. It was in my desk. He walked into the kitchen. The yellow tabs and Northline authorizations were gone from the table. I followed him. "Where are the documents?" "At the office." "Did you approve a Northline payment?" He opened the refrigerator. "What?" "The $62,000 one. Your initials are on it." For a moment, he held the door open and stared at the shelves. Then he removed a bottle of water. "Ryan brought it to a job site. He said Dana needed approval." "Did you ask what Northline did?" "We had 4 projects behind schedule. I signed what he brought me. So your signature is a busy man's oversight, but mine is a confession." "That's not what I said. It's what you're asking me to sign." He twisted the cap too hard and water spilled over his hand. I didn't know Northline was connected to Ryan's friend until later. "Which friend?" He wiped his hand on a dish towel. "Derek Vale." I knew Derek as a voice that arrived from Ryan's boat in summer photographs. He had once come to our cookout, eaten 3 steaks, and told me bookkeeping was what happened when math lost its ambition. What consulting did Derek do? I don't know. Then why are you protecting it? I'm protecting the company from the way Ryan handled it, by saying I handled it. Evan threw the damp towel onto the counter. "What do you want from me? Do you want me to turn on my brother in front of the bank? Destroy the credit line? Tell Cruz there's no work because my wife needed the language on a tax amendment to feel emotionally fair? I want you to stop calling me your wife when you mean your shield." He walked away before I saw what landed. The next morning, our joint checking account rejected the electric payment. I called the bank from Hartwell's stairwell. Evan had moved most of the balance to Mercer Restoration as repayment for a short-term advance he claimed the company had made toward our kitchen renovation. The bank representative spoke in calm circles about authorized account holders and valid transfers. When I called Evan, he was at a job site. Saws screamed behind him. "You moved our household money." I moved company money back to the company. My paycheck was in that account. So was mine. The mortgage is due. I paid it. With what? The company covered it temporarily. I closed my eyes. "You paid our personal mortgage from Mercer?" "As an owner draw. It's documented." "By Dana?" "By me." "Move my paycheck back." "I can't do that today. Can or won't. I'm trying to keep everything afloat while you yank out boards." He hung up. I opened an individual checking account, rerouted my paycheck, and paid the electric bill twice because the first screen froze. Then I sat on the concrete stairs and cried so quietly the motion sensor turned off the light. Lorraine was waiting in the Hartwell parking lot at 5. She stood beside her sedan in a camel coat, holding a manila envelope. She had brought no casserole this time. "I won't keep you," she said. "I'm surprised security let you in." "They didn't. I'm in a parking lot." "You know what I mean?" Her mouth tightened. She deserved that one. She held out the envelope. Inside was a revised statement. It did not say I had invented the Northline classification. It said I had relied on incomplete information and failed to escalate concerns adequately before processing the payments. "This is the narrower version," Lorraine said. "It protects you and the company. It still says I failed. You did process them. Ryan authorized them. Evan authorized one. Evan trusted his brother. You were supposed to be the person checking." The precision of it took my breath. Whatever role I occupied, they could turn it until its weakest edge faced me. "If you sign," she continued, "Ryan will correct what he told the vendors. The company will pay your invoice. Evan will restore the household money. So this is a ransom note. It is a compromise. Does Walter know?" "My marriage is not under discussion." "Mine was under discussion at your anniversary dinner." For the first time, she looked tired rather than offended. "I spent 34 years making sure those brothers did not abandon each other," she said. "Their father could disappear into work for weeks. Ryan learned to demand. Evan learned to provide. It may not be healthy, but it kept this family standing. It kept Ryan standing. Families are rarely balanced. Then why am I always under the heavy side?" She looked toward the Hartwell windows. "Because you can carry it." I handed the envelope back. Her fingers closed around it slowly. "The bank meeting is Friday," she said. "If you refuse to attend, Ryan will present the first statement as his understanding of events. That isn't my statement. He'll say you declined to correct it. And Evan is letting him? Evan is trying to save what he can." She got into her car without another word. That night, I changed the passwords to my personal email, bank, and phone account. At 9:30, the front door opened. Lorraine walked in, using a new silver key. She stopped when she saw me at the kitchen table. Behind her, Evan carried a box of company files. "I told her she could come," he said. I looked at the key still in Lorraine's hand. He had copied it in less than 24 hours. Dana's email arrived while all three of us stood there. The subject line read, "Friday meeting." I opened it. "I will attend. Mara should be present for any discussion that attributes tax preparation decisions to her." Lorraine read my face. "What did she say?" I turned the screen toward Evan. He set the box down carefully as if it contained glass. Then he said, "We need to decide what you're going to do." I looked at his mother's new key, at the files he had brought into our house, and at Dana's name on the screen. "I just did," I said. Lorraine's chin lifted. "You're going to the meeting?" "Yes." "Good. Then we can discuss the language calmly." "I'm not signing either statement." Evan pressed his fingers to his forehead. "Then what did you decide?" "That I'm going to let Dana say what happened. I've told you what happens if the bank, and I've heard you." Lorraine slipped the silver key into her purse. I held out my hand. "Leave it." "I beg your pardon?" "The key." "Mara," Evan said. "She can come in when you're home to invite her in. She doesn't need a key." Lorraine looked at him. That was their smallest ritual, and maybe their most honest. She would make the demand with her eyes, and he would turn it into words so she could remain above asking. He didn't this time. "Mom," he said, "give her the key." Lorraine's face went blank. She placed it on the table without looking at either of us. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, I watched how hard it was for Evan to hold his mother's disappointment for 10 seconds, and I knew he had never once held mine with the same care. Lorraine left. Evan carried the box of files upstairs. I slept with the new key under my lamp. On Friday morning, the Mercer conference room smelled like burnt coffee and new carpet adhesive. The company had replaced the floor after a pipe leak, but the baseboard still showed a brown water line. Ryan sat at the head of the table in a navy suit. Beside him were Evan, Lorraine, Walter, and a woman from Commonwealth Bank named Julie Palmer. Teresa had placed water bottles at every seat. Dana's chair was empty. Ryan looked at his watch when I entered. "Nice of you to join us." "It's 8:58. We started at 8:30. Julie closed the folder in front of her. "We've been discussing general renewal terms. We postponed the tax issue until all relevant parties were present." "Almost all," I said. Ryan smiled. "Dana's late." "She's parking," Teresa said from the doorway. He turned. "Why are you in here?" "You told me to bring coffee. I didn't tell you to narrate the parking lot." Teresa set a mug in front of Julie and left with the pot. Her eyes met mine for half a second. Lorraine had dressed as if respectability had a uniform. Cream blouse, pearl earrings, camel coat folded behind her chair. Walter wore the same gray suit he used for funerals and bank appointments. He stared at a crack in the tabletop. In front of my seat lay the narrower statement. I slid it toward Ryan. "I won't be signing that." Julie looked from him to me. "For clarity, what is it?" "A factual account of the coding error," Ryan said. "Mara processed 3 payments under an incorrect classification." "On your instructions," I said. He spread his hands. "That's the disagreement." Evan stared at the cap of his water bottle. The door opened. Dana came in carrying a canvas briefcase and 2 thick folders. Her short black hair was damp from the rain. "I apologize," she said. "There was an accident on Madison." Ryan stood. "Before you sit down, I want to be clear that this meeting concerns bank financing. You don't have authorization to disclose privileged company communications to non-clients." Dana removed her coat. "Accounting communications aren't protected by attorney-client privilege, Ryan." Julie looked down to hide a smile. Dana sat beside me. She did not greet me beyond a slight nod. Ryan resumed his seat. "Fine. Let's keep this efficient." Northline provided development consulting on 3 large projects. Mara entered the invoices as subcontractor expenses without obtaining adequate support. Dana caught the issue during year-end review. We're amending the returns. "Which projects?" Julie asked. Ryan named 3 renovations. Dana opened the first folder. Northline is not recorded as a vendor on any of those project ledgers. It was general consulting. Then the expenses should not have been allocated to subcontractor costs. That's the error we're correcting. "Who made the classification decision?" Julie asked. Ryan pointed at the statement. "Our bookkeeper." "I wasn't the company's bookkeeper," I said. "I had no title, no compensation, and no authority to approve payments. I entered transactions after Ryan or Evan authorized them." Julie's pen stopped. "You were unpaid?" Evan finally spoke. "She helped with back office work as part of the family." I looked at him. He heard it after he said it. His mouth closed. Dana took a paper from her folder. On March 12th, I emailed Ryan requesting a contract, deliverables, and a W-9 for Northline. I advised that the first payment should not be treated as subcontractor expense without support. She placed a copy in front of Julie, then another in front of Ryan. Ryan didn't touch his. Dana continued. Ryan replied, "Book it where Mara put it. Derek's work touches every project." "The work did touch every project," Ryan said. "What work?" Julie asked. "Business development, strategy, relationships." Walter looked up. "Derek took you fishing." Ryan's head snapped toward him. Walter rubbed at the waterline on the wall with the side of his shoe. "You said it was business development when you put the gas on the company card." "Dad, please." Dana laid out the second email. On June 4th, I repeated my request after the second payment. Evan was copied. Evan closed his eyes. I read the top page upside down. Dana's words were polite and unmistakable. Without documentation establishing an ordinary business purpose and the nature of services performed, I cannot support the proposed treatment. Below it, Evan had written, Ryan says Derek is producing expansion plans. I approved payment based on that representation. Tell Mara to keep it consistent for now. I had not seen that email. Evan had told me by text that Ryan approved the payment and needed it entered before the Friday batch. Consistent, I said. His eyes opened. That's what you called the misunderstanding. I believed Ryan, he said, but you knew I wasn't choosing the code. Julie read the email twice. Ryan leaned forward. This still establishes a process error. Mara should have escalated instead of blindly following an owner. Dana removed another page. She did. My own email appeared on the table. I remembered it only when I saw the subject line. Northline need documentation. I had sent it to the tax mailbox after the third authorization copying Ryan. I wrote that I was entering the payment as directed but could not verify the classification and wanted the concern preserved for year-end review. Ryan picked it up. This could have been written after the fact. The server timestamp is August 19th, Dana said. You told me the mailbox didn't preserve old messages. I told you the visible inbox had a retention rule. My firm archives correspondence supporting tax work. The silence changed shape. For days, I had imagined vindication as heat, some bright rush that would return everything taken from me. What came instead was a cold loosening in my chest. I had not remembered the email. I had begun to doubt the sound of my own objections because the people around me repeated that I had never made them. Dana opened the second folder. Ryan stood again. We've established, she objected. Great, we'll revise the statement. No, Dana said. We haven't established the decision to attribute this to her. Lorraine reached for Evan's arm. He moved it away before she touched him. Dana placed a printed chain in front of Julie, then one in front of me. Ryan had forwarded Dana's June warning to Evan with a note. She's covering herself. If this gets flagged, we amend and make it bookkeeping. Mara entered them, so Mara wears it. Evan had replied 4 minutes later. I hate it, but the bank can't take another problem. Get through Mom and Dad's dinner. We'll talk to Mara there when everyone can keep it calm. The words blurred, then sharpened again. Get through Mom and Dad's dinner. At home that afternoon, he had printed yellow tabs and marked my initials. He had driven me to Lorraine's house. He had kissed my cheek in the foyer while she adjusted my necklace. He had known exactly what would come after cake. Lorraine read over Evan's shoulder. Her hand rose to her throat. You said the dinner would help her understand, she whispered. I was trying to keep Ryan from sending the first statement without talking to her. You agreed to make her wear it, I said. Evan looked at me across the table. His face had gone gray. I thought if you saw the risk, we could find language everyone could survive. Everyone? Julie set the email down. Commonwealth cannot proceed with the renewal on the current representations. Ryan's chair struck the wall when he pushed back. This is one internal email. You're going to jeopardize 23 jobs over phrasing. I'm pausing the renewal until we receive amended returns, full support for related party and consulting payments, and a control plan prepared with Ms. Cho. Northline isn't related. Then documenting it should be straightforward. Dana capped her pen. My firm will complete the amendments. I will not characterize the entries as Mara's error. Ryan looked at Evan. Say something. Evan's gaze stayed on me. For once, I didn't help him decide what words belonged there. The credit line did not disappear that morning. It tightened. Commonwealth extended it for 60 days under existing limits, while Dana reconstructed the payments. Renewal required an outside controller, 2 approvals for transfers over $10,000, and Ryan's removal from direct accounting access. Ryan called the conditions insulting, predatory, and personal. Then 3 suppliers shortened their terms, and he signed. Northline produced a 2-page growth strategy with Derek's name misspelled in the footer. Dana reclassified the payments and calculated the taxes and penalties. Lorraine and Walter borrowed against their house to help the company cover the adjustment after Ryan admitted most of the money could not be recovered. He never apologized to me. He sent Falcon Millwork an email saying an internal review had confirmed I acted under management direction. Teresa forwarded it with the message, "Frame this instead, more expensive." My invoice was paid 2 days late. I returned the check and asked for an electronic payment so there would be a record. At Hartwell, I took over vendor compliance. Nisha stopped bringing muffins to meetings after I showed her how much they cost annually, then reinstated them after the entire department blamed me. It was the first disagreement in weeks that did not threaten my home, my name, or somebody's credit line. Evan kept sleeping in the second bedroom. He took over Thursday payroll under Dana's supervision. The first week, he missed the cutoff and drove paper checks to job sites before dawn. He began coming home with drive-through dinners and envelopes he left unopened on the counter. Sunday passed without Lorraine entering the house. The refrigerator held no casserole. At 5, Evan stood in the kitchen staring into it. "Do we have anything to eat?" "I do." He looked at the container of pasta I had made for myself, then nodded. He learned. Not enough, and not in time. But he learned. He apologized at the kitchen table on a rainy Tuesday. There were no flowers or printed speeches, just a mug of cold coffee between his hands. "I kept telling myself I was protecting the company," he said. "Then I saw that email and realized I had decided you were cheaper." I waited. "I'm sorry." "I believe you." Hope moved across his face so quickly I nearly looked away. "Believing you're sorry doesn't make me safe with you." He bowed his head. "I can change," he said. "You already did." He understood that too. The separation agreement took months because ordinary lives are sticky. The house was tied to the company line only as part of our financial disclosure, not collateral, and Evan agreed I should keep it in exchange for my share of other assets and a clean division of the remaining debt. He moved into an apartment near the office. Lorraine called the arrangement temporary until he asked her to stop speaking for him. On his final trip, he carried down a box marked "Dining Room Moms." Inside was the crystal house from the anniversary table, wrapped in one of Lorraine's embroidered napkins. "She said it belongs here," he told me. "Why?" "I think she doesn't want to look at it." A crack ran along the little roof. One chimney had broken off and lay in the folds of the napkin. Evan placed his house key in the ceramic dish by the door. He looked at the red heart Lorraine had removed from her old key ring and left there months earlier. "You changed the lock again?" he asked. "Yes." He gave a tired half smile. "Good." After he left, I sat at the kitchen table with my brass key ring and a pair of pliers. I removed the Mercer office key and the dented filing cabinet key. Dana had agreed to collect them with the last company documents, so I sealed both in an envelope addressed to her. The old house key went into the trash beside Lorraine's red wooden heart. I slid the single new silver key onto the ring. The cracked crystal house caught the light from above the table. Through its tiny clear windows, the kitchen looked bent and doubled, familiar pieces rearranged by the glass. I set my key beside it. The house was quiet and the door was locked.